Well, let's open the debate. Joining us here on the Morning News Hour, good morning to you. Mr. Deshratan Nigamji is a lawyer who is with us right now. Tausif Ahmed Khan, also a lawyer and political analyst, joining in. Tausif, good morning to you as well. Tausif, while the government has claimed that the demand for reform that came in from within the Muslim community, the opposition has smelled a rat. They have been smelling a conspiracy behind this move. What is your take on that?
No, the demand from Muslim community to reform is the non-involvement of the government and government stooges and government agents through Waqf. What is Waqf property? First of all, please let us clarify. The Muslim rich philanthropists who have donated their land for charitable and religious purposes. Now government is eyeing on those property. Government is eyeing and helping individuals to usurp those properties which is meant for the benefit of downtrodden, which is meant for benefit of orphans and for women and for poor people. This is absolutely unacceptable. Why should government interfere?
Okay, so you're saying that the government is taking away lands that are meant for the poor, for the women, but that's a counterclaim that's being made by the government as well. Request you for just a moment, let's take a counter from Deshratan Nigam. Looking at the numbers as well, Mr. Nigam, 52,000 properties of the Waqf board when it started off, and now it has increased to over 8 lakh. But the argument being that this is the government trying to take away land that belongs to the Muslims.
Well, let me make it very clear. We live in a secular country and we should have secular laws. That is one thing. And secondly, if you look at the history, the Britishers, as a quid pro quo, gave Muslims before independence a lot of properties. And when the partition took place, the Waqf property was declared as Waqf properties. In fact, rather in Bangladesh and Pakistan, no such provision was made and the properties were taken over. And in fact, the properties should have been taken over by the Indian government. However, the appeasement politics of the governments of those times and even to very recently, 2014, such kind of, things have taken place, and drastic and draconian powers under the Waqf Act of 1995, as you rightly pointed out before we started debating, that unilateral rights of the Waqf board to declare any property, as a Waqf property, and they are the, jury and judge both, and tribunal after tribunal there is no appeal. Supreme Court in the Taj Mahal case intervened.
Does it call for more transparency when it comes to the working of the Waqf? Because Tausif, as you mentioned, that these properties are also meant for women and the downtrodden. But it seems that the women and the children are one who are suffering. If a Muslim woman is divorced, then she and her children will not get any rights. Is that true?
No. Why are they suffering? Just now, Deshratan Nigam admitted, willingly or unwillingly, that the intention is to take over these properties. Why should the BJP government take over the properties when BJP government openly says, "Jo hamare saath, hum unke saath." Muslims are not voting for BJP, I will not do anything for Muslims. Open. The leader of opposition from Bengal, BJP Bengal leader Subhendu Adhikari has openly said it. That jo hamare saath nahi, hum unke saath nahi hai. By what is once the property is donated as Waqf, it remains a Waqf forever, because the transfer of property happens either by sale or purchase. That's the only way that a title transfers. Once the property is given in donation to Waqf, the nature of that property remains as a Waqf forever. To the eternity. It cannot be changed. Nobody else can own it. Government cannot undertake it over, because that is the property meant for the charitable and religious purposes. The government now, as Deshratan Nigam was saying, that we are a secular country.
When it comes to gurdwaras or even temples that go beyond, when it comes to 1500 years old, what about the claims that have been made on those particular land?
Each of the charitable land, whether it belongs to temple or gurdwara, they are all regulated. Similarly, the Muslim properties are also regulated. What is the Waqf Act? Waqf Act was introduced only to regulate, with a promise that there will be no corruption. But what we have seen in the years, in the recent times and in the recent decade, that there has been corruption, that government agents are trying to take over the properties and sell it off. give it away to some.
No, but Mr. Tausif, I'm sure you're aware why it was introduced. Yes, that was the intention behind it. But sweeping powers were given to the Waqf board in 2013, and that's where the BJP says the problem comes in. That sweeping powers have been given, and there is no transparency. Like you mentioned, any land can be state claimed to. The Waqf board can come and say that this belongs to us, and it becomes incumbent on the owner to prove otherwise. So would you say that you're opposed to this transparency? Because the government says that we're trying to bring in only transparency and remove these arbitrary powers.
Government thinks very highly of himself. This BJP, Mr. Modi, thinks that he is the only smartest of the lot and everyone else is a fool. Who appoints people in members of Waqf board? It is the government. Government is represented in the Waqf board. Who appoints the chairman of the Waqf board? It is the government.
What about women's representation?
CEO? It is the
what
government.
about women's representation? Because Mr. Nigam, as far as the
BJP
proposed amendment also talks about for the first time when it comes to the inclusion of women in Waqf boards and also ensuring that the land is verified before it is announced as the Waqf property.
Well, Amitaji, let me make it very clear that the draconian powers given under the Waqf board is that any user, whether illegally occupying or otherwise, can create a Waqf. And he does not have to show any documents also. And the drastic powers of the board as a civil court to decide title is something which should never happen in a secular country. Only secular civil courts should have the power to decide title. And what is the aims and objective of the Waqf board? To protect and manage the properties of the Waqf, not to provide justice. So even if it is an illegal land, once it is declared a Waqf, it remains a Waqf. And civil courts do not have power. There is no appeal from the tribunal. Therefore, the draconian powers need to be taken away from the board. And women and children, certainly, we live in a secular country where Article 14 provides equal rights. Those are not given. Therefore, you are absolutely right. And how, let us look at the modus operandi, how it happens. The first thing is to legally or illegally, which most of the time is illegal, claiming land as Qabristan, then creating small dargahs at places, and third, offering prayers in public lands. And then they can be taken as a Waqf land and registered as a Waqf land, and there is no appeal, no civil court's power. So the system itself is biased against non-Muslims. So take over the lands, create them as a Waqf land, once a Waqf land, always a Waqf land. So a kind of a circular, motion is created where you cannot get out of it.
So you're saying to ensure more transparency, as is what the government has also been saying, that there should be accountability. There are several disputed lands that will also come under scrutiny if these amendments are brought in. The discussion is likely to come up in the Parliament. Fireworks also expected. We're keeping a close eye on that. Thanking you both for joining us in that discussion.